Okay guys, welcome back. We are forging on down the body. We're going over our muscles. We need to know the names and then the actions, right? So we're now on deltoid muscle, okay? The deltoid starts up here on the acromion and the clavicle, and it inserts, the part that moves in other words, on the deltoid tuberosity out here on the outside, okay? So you want to be able to identify that as the deltoid. What's it going to do? Well, it's going to pull up on the outside of that humerus bone. We're going to get arms flying out to the side. The name for that action is abduction. Think of what abduction means. When if somebody's abducted, they're taken away, right? Well, in this case, in the anatomy, something that's abducted is coming away from the midline of the body, okay? Abducted, okay? So here we've got some examples. People abducting their arms, okay? Cute little guy. Now, here we see another example where the arms are kind of coming forward more than they're going out to the sides. This is also an action of the deltoid. It so happens that the deltoid has fibers that go straight along the side for abduction, but they also have fibers that attach more so to the clavicle. Going forward, this is flexion. Again, remember, if I'm 180 degrees like this, standing straight up and down, and now my arms are up like this, well, there is an angle here that is less than it was before. Flexion is always making the angle smaller, okay? Now it's also true, and here's some more abduction, right? Some more flexion. Something I don't have here is the fact that there are fibers of the deltoid in the back as well. So it's not flexion coming forward, it's extension going backward. So this muscle can do all of those things because those fibers are all going to exist as part of that particular muscle, okay? All right, biceps, most people know this one, right? So you see bicep, right? That kind of action. Again, we have muscles starting up near the shoulder, attaching to the radius down here, and so this is making an angle smaller. We would say flexion, but we need to say of what? The elbow. This is why we need more than just that fancy word. Flexion, but of what? We have flexion when you do this, right? Sternocleidomastoid. We have flexion when we bring our arms forward, deltoid, but you also have flexion here for the elbow. You need to attach something to that word flexion. Flexion of the arms for deltoid. Flexion at the elbow. Say something about the joint maybe when it comes to the bicep brachii. Okay, so we have a bunch of corny pictures here. People having a hard time lifting very little, okay? It's also true that with the biceps, you're going to have this notion that the arms are coming up and you could cup something. Let's say you could hold water here, right? You could hold water or hold soup in your hand there. That is supination. So that's why I like to remember soup, just because it's liquid, right? And soup, if you can hold soup, that action is supination. This is why for bicep brachii, when you do curls, a lot of times they'll tell you not to just go up and down like this, but to move your arm and twist the arm, right? Because that's the supination motion. You're really getting the most out of that bicep brachii, okay? Notice the word says bicep brachii. It doesn't just say biceps. You want to get away from just these short terms, right, that maybe are terms you've used, but we're going to find that biceps show up again in the leg, okay? All right, triceps brachii. They're going to be on the opposite side of the arm, okay? This is where I found this one. This lady's illustrating some issues with her triceps, right? But what are you going to do to fix that? You would do extension. We have a muscle here that's pulling on that olecranon process, that point on your elbow. That's part of the ulna. It's going to make the angle bigger at the elbow. Elbow extension, okay? That's what we see here. Our elbow extension motions. Again, the rock. I don't know why. guess he was all over the Jiffy website I was looking at. All right. Down at the lower arms, we have the front of the arm, where your palm is, so that has to be the anterior side, and then we have the back. Okay? We have these muscles that go down the front of your forearm, palm side, and they have all these tendons that hinge upon the fingers and the wrist. Okay? So, you want to think making a fist, right? Flexors and fist. All right, it's going to flex the arm, excuse me, it's going to flex the wrist and fingers. That would be the action. Now, there are lots of flexors for different fingers, for the whole wrist. They all have names. I'm going to take it easy on you for that. This happens to have a specific one in this little video. It says flexor digitorum superficialis. So this is a long word, right? Just know flexors and what they generally do. And we have that idea that you're flexing the wrist and fingers. Okay? On the flip side, we've got extensors, right? These are going to pull on the other side of the wrist and fingers. They're going to make the angle bigger there. Therefore, it's extension. So you just want to know extensors of the wrist, or extensors muscles. And what they're going to do, the action will be extension of the wrist and fingers. So I've got this exploding thing going on, right? These would be good examples of extension in the case of the wrist and fingers. Okay? Now, a quick little hint. When it comes to the arm, everything in the front that I went over with you is doing flexion, you notice. Okay? The fibers of the deltoid in the front flex the arm, or you could say flex at the shoulder joint. The biceps, which are in front, elbow flexion. The flexors of the wrist and fingers, well, they flex the wrist and fingers, flexion of the wrist and fingers. So everything in this motion, everything in front is flexing, right? Deltoid, bicep, brachii, flexors. We're going the opposite direction. We are all in doing extension. The extensors of the wrist and fingers extend the wrist and fingers. Extension of the wrist and fingers. Triceps, extension of the elbow. The deltoid in the back, those fibers are going to extend the arm at the shoulder joint. Okay? So, little hint, right? Front is flexion when it comes to all these arm muscles, and in the back we're going to see the extension going on. All right, I'm skipping, if you're following along with the list here, I'm skipping a few just so I can tell you a quick story and how it relates to a few of the others we're going to go over here in just a second. I'm skipping to the pectoralis major muscle. Pectoralis major, the origin is here on the sternum and costal cartilages. And these muscles insert on the humerus bone. In fact, the front part of your armpit, right there, there's some muscle in there, and a good part of that muscle is pectoralis major. What's it going to do? Well, we think it through, right? This is like a string or a spring between these two. It's going to pull my arm, and it's going to pull towards the center. It would have to, right? It's going to pull towards the center, and it's going to pull, since my chest and my breastbone is in front of where my arm is, it's going to pull my arm towards the front, like a flexion motion, right? Now we saw the deltoids doing the same thing. It doesn't mean that you can't have other muscles playing a role, okay? So what's going to cause that motion? Both a flexion and, in the case of coming towards the middle, it's not flying outward like the deltoids cause abduction. It's coming towards the middle. Towards the midline would be adduction, A-D-D. You're adding to the midline. Okay, so what's going to do this? Well, if I'm going to do one-handed push-ups, which I can't probably do one of. If I'm going to do push-ups, right, what am I doing? Every time I push up, well, check out those humerus bones. Every time I push up, if I'm going to push you away from me, right? Those are coming towards the middle and towards the front, okay? So if you just look at these for a little bit and focus on the humerus bones, they're absolutely coming towards the middle when you do push-ups. And if you do a bench press, right? Same thing. Or this mouse, trying to get out of the mouse trap, right? All right, so this was a little bit of a setup, guys. Pectoralis major, I have a buddy in grad school. He was really gung-ho about working on his chest and getting bigger, right? He was actually taking this supplement called creatine, which I'll talk to you guys about later. And he was making progress. He was actually doing a machine in the gym where he would adduct, bringing those humerus bones closer to the middle, adduction, right? Absolutely involving the pectoralis major, right? And you can feel that if you pull your arms in and really flex, tense up those muscles. So he was doing this exercise, and it was on a machine in the gym, okay? So he didn't have to balance anything at all. He wasn't using free weights or anything like that. And he was making progress, okay? He was able to lift more and more. There was a stack of weights behind him on these machines with cables, as you've probably seen, and he was making good progress. And then he decided, okay, I'm going to try bench press. Same general motion, right? This idea of flexion and adduction at the shoulder joint. And he quite quickly, in the first set, I think, he ripped and tore a couple different rotator cuff muscles. All right, so if we zoom in and check out this shoulder joint, we know that it's a really movable joint. It's a synovial joint that needs supports. So there's ligaments and tendons in there. But there's the tendons that are in there are from other muscles that are pulling that head of the humerus right into the socket there, making sure they don't come out, right? You don't want this to dislocate, okay, to have this fall out of the socket. Well, those muscles were not they were not improving and getting stronger along with my buddy's pec muscles, because he was isolating the pec muscles. He didn't have to balance, right? If you have to balance, right, and you're laying back on a bench press and you have to balance some dumbbells, right, and they can move independently, they could fall behind you, in front of you, to the sides, right? This stuff's going to twist and rotate. Hint, hint, rotator cuff muscles are what we're doing next. They're going to rotate here, and if you don't have those little supports that are going to these tendons here, you're going to rip and tear them, okay? These are the muscles that are providing you with stability. Remember, a synovial joint needs certain things for stability. One is the shape of the articular surfaces, another is ligaments, and another is muscle tone. So, first rotator cuff muscle I'd like to talk about allows you to pull inward, okay? If you make a fist and just keep your elbow stable, so you're not moving the elbow, and you pull in like this, that's going to be subscapularis muscle, pulling on the front of that humerus bone, way up at the tip here, okay? It's going to be that lesser tubercle, actually, if you're trying to remember the name, okay? This motion can be called rotation, because it's rotating in place, but it's also going to be called internal rotation, okay? It's going to come internally and medially. My physical therapy guy, I had shoulder issues a couple different times. I had some shoulder issues, and he called it internal rotation. Same thing. Medial rotation of the arm would be the action you want to give me for that particular muscle. All right. On the back, you're going to have muscles that allow you to pull outward, right? We have this kind of motion. So this guy's got some bands, right, on a bookcase and pulling out, not in. These muscles are underneath the spine of the scapula back here, so Big surprise, the name, infraspinatus. These muscles are pulling from underneath the spine onto the greater tubercle, twisting in place. Okay, this is called lateral rotation of the arms, or you could say external rotation. Teres minor muscles, they're along for the ride. They do a lot of the same thing. They're right in that same place just underneath the infraspinatus. Okay, last one, last rotator cuff muscles. We've done 3 of them. Last one is supraspinatus. Supraspinatus kind of wiggles its way out underneath the acromion from above the spine. Supraspinatus, big surprise. And it attaches out here on the outside of the humerus bone. It's going to have an assisting effect as the deltoid does. The deltoid is much bigger. It has more, it's more of the primary mover when it comes to this that moves that arm out. It's stronger and bigger, has more leverage. But the supraspinatus can do a little bit of that, and it keeps that head of the humerus. Like I said, all of these last 4 we've gone through give stability to that shoulder joint. Okay, so again, it's more of the same, right, with the arms coming out to the side. Okay guys, so let's call it quits, and then we'll do more of the torso, getting into the abdominal muscles and some of the back muscles next time.